What's up, everybody? It is Jared with Capture the Magic, and in today's video, we're going to take a look at some changes that are happening at Epic Universe, as this park seemingly is a very fluid situation, which is something I've talked about, I think, when it comes to the capacity or some of the park aspects, that would be the case. And we have another example of that with the early park entry for Universal Hotel guests, as there are some new things been added to that. So we're going to go through this and give some thoughts on it. Now, previously, it had been for early park access, for those that aren't aware, if you're staying at a Universal hotel, you would have 1 hour entry into Epic Universe ahead of everybody else. That included Super Nintendo World and Stardust Racers. And obviously, you can walk around Celestial Park, but the carousel wasn't running. But those are the attractions and the lands that you can access during early park entry. But as of today, Universal has changed this and updated it to where now early park access also includes Dark Universe, all the attractions in there, Curse of the Werewolf and Monsters Unchained, as well as Constellation Carousel. Now, the reason as to why, I think one thing I do like about what Universal does is they kind of typically everything's sort of a fluid thing. They'll make changes as it comes up, as is needed, or they get feedback. It is something that I do appreciate about what they typically will do. And I do think this is partially due to what we've seen with, obviously, the opening day had really low wait times. We were there opening day, and that was a shock that most rides were walk-ons, where they're really restricting capacity. And as they are upping the capacity of the park, obviously they want to go higher. They want to make more money. And we already know July 1st, it's already starting to look like they have 22,000 as the park capacity. But again, I've heard that that is going to continue to grow as the year goes along and these attractions become more reliable. But the other aspect of this is, and I had heard from some people saying that one of the reasons they were limiting capacity in the really early going was they still weren't really sure about how people would navigate this park, where bottlenecks were. Like, a lot of the guest flow of this park wasn't really known yet. But looking at the wait times here, obviously Super Nintendo World being very busy and seemingly needing a little bit of a relief valve there, because it is a land where a lot of people are going to want to go check out. And if you already have a super busy land, as that was the main place where most people were going in early park access, then you have the day guests coming in that aren't staying on Universal property. They're walking into an already busy land, and then you see these really high wait times, and obviously that's not going to lend itself to people being very happy with lots of wait times everywhere. So my guess is this is a way to see if this helps Super Nintendo World in terms of wait times, and just kind of, again, diversifying what's available to give people more options, and then seeing how that affects wait times. So I think that's part of it. And obviously, this is going to affect, rope dropping strategy if you're staying on property or off property. Because obviously, if you're staying on property, you have now more choices, because this is seemingly an ever, ongoing, changing strategy here. So if you look at Super Nintendo World, obviously that is a very busy land. Mario Kart tends to really get busy first thing in the morning, and then you see lower wait times later in the day. Minecart Madness tends to stay pretty high wait times throughout the day that we've seen. And Monsters Unchained and Dark Universe, being a headlining attraction, actually moves a lot of people through it per hour very well. So I think if you're a hotel guest in terms of rope dropping, I still think rope dropping Super Nintendo World is probably your best bet. Now, I would probably aim to go to Minecart Madness first, just because later in the day that is going to be a much higher wait time than it will be likely first thing in the morning. Then maybe what the best choice then is, given Mario Kart is probably going to have a lot of people in it, probably going to be a pretty decent wait time there, I would probably then go into Dark Universe, ride Monsters Unchained. You might be able to do both of these, or at least get in line for Monsters Unchained before the early entry is done, depending on where you're at in line for Minecart Madness. And then maybe save Mario Kart for later in the day, as typically as the evening gets closer, you will see lower wait times there, as well as for Battle of the Ministry. So I think I would still rope drop Super Nintendo World, and that might be a strategy that would work pretty well, as kind of, again, when it comes to Epic Universe, you kind of just try and go where people aren't, and being a little flexible in your day kind of maybe is the best bet for that. So if you did that strategy, and let's say you did, Minecart Madness, and then you did Dark Universe, you did Monsters Unchained, maybe at that point, once everybody goes in, going into Isle of Berk at that point may not be a terrible idea, because again, nobody's kind of early access there. So if you could time that out just right, you might be able to get into Isle of Berk and ride Hiccup's Wing Gliders, right off the bat there. So you would have 3 attractions kind of right off the bat done before most people in the park would be able to really even get one done, and then look at the wait times at that point. Like I said, Mario Kart typically later in the day goes down in wait times, as does Battle of the Ministry. So then it kind of gives you more flexibility and kind of looking at wait times. Maybe check out some shows like what you want to do in a day there. Go where the crowds aren't sort of strategy. If you're not a hotel guest, I still think the advice that in the video I'd given before still holds true. I wouldn't rope drop Super Nintendo World, and I wouldn't rope drop Battle with Ministry. I would probably go rope drop either Dark Universe or Isle of Berk. Probably in this scenario, Isle of Berk makes a lot of sense. Try and do Hiccup's Wing Gliders, do a lot of things on that land. Then go into Dark Universe as Monsters Unchained is, moves a lot of people through it. So typically you don't have really, really high wait times there compared to some of the other attractions. And then at that point, take a look at the app, see where Battle of the Ministry looks, see what Super Nintendo looks like. And probably, given how I've typically seen this park, probably then go into Super Nintendo World later in the day, do those, and then look at Battle of the Ministry. Maybe while you're in Super Nintendo World, not waiting too long in the day to do Battle of the Ministry necessarily, just because if that ride does go down, and it does tend to go down, it may go down for the rest of the night if it's like toward the evening. So some of this is just going to be seeing what these wait times are, being kind of flexible on them. But the first thing in the morning, if you're not a hotel guest, I still think Isle of Berk or Dark Universe is your best bet. Personally speaking, I would go with Isle of Berk and then go into Dark Universe, as Dark Universe is probably going to be busier right off the bat, obviously, because it's part of early park entry now, and Isle of Berk is not going to have anybody in there in the early part of the day for early park entry. So I think that's still the strategy I would hold to, but I think it definitely changes more things if you have, if you're a hotel guest, you have early park entry, you have some more choices here. And so a lot of this is going to come down to, we'll have to wait and see how these wait times look, what the flow looks like. But I definitely think Universal is sort of tweaking, trying to, find the right flow, find the right balance for this park to try and, give people a good experience while trying to help alleviate some of these wait time bottlenecks that we're seeing. And this could help with that. We'll have to wait and see. And they could make more changes to this, as obviously this seems like a very fluid situation. So obviously, if you're staying on Universal property, they're giving you a lot more perks and incentives to do this. And really speaking, when it comes to the Universal hotels and where they're priced, I typically tell people, if you are staying at a hotel, like I would stay on Universal property, just given the price point that a lot of the hotels are at are, lower or the same as other area hotels. But you also get all the perks involved. And now having early park access, if you're really wanting to get the most out of Epic Universe, I think it actually makes a lot of sense to stay on Universal property, because yet again, you got more access to early park entry features here, and it just gives you more time in the day in the park to try and get as much stuff done. And with wait times going to be an issue in this park, especially in the early going, I think the more time you can get in this park, you're going to be able to get more things done. And this could be tied to, we've talked about before, that, in the June time period, the hotels still had a lot of availability. Perhaps they're trying to, entice more people to stay on Universal property, and also adding these perks in there to do that, get more bookings up, but also seeing how the park operates with this thing, this land now being added in here. So I think it's sort of just them testing things out as they kind of go with this, still learning how this park flows and operates. And more than likely, especially this year, we're probably going to see a lot of changes just as they get feedback from things and see what they needed to tweak some things here, tweak some things there. So in terms of Epic Universe, I think the crowd capacity, I think the land's opening in the early part of the day, and a lot of things about this park are kind of a fluid situation. But I do think it's something that it seems like Universal is taking feedback they're getting and trying to, make some changes to see if this helps things out. So I do appreciate seemingly, operating from that standpoint and not just saying this is a blanket thing, this is how it is, and not really willing to, make any changes. As of now, early park access now includes Super Nintendo World, Dark Universe, and all the rides in Celestial Park. So a lot more choices there. And if you're looking to go to Epic Universe sometime this year, be sure to be up to date on these things, because I don't think this is the last change we're likely to see at Epic Universe in terms of maybe the early park entry access, perhaps some of the park operations, the park capacity. Like, I think all these things are kind of in a fluid situation, and will probably change perhaps quite a bit from now until the end of the year. So this is something we can definitely keep an eye on, but we will let you know on this channel whenever these changes happen, so you can plan your trip and have the most information you can going into it, so you can have the best time there. And if you are looking to go to Epic Universe and you want some Epic Universe gear or other theme park gear, be sure to check out Capture the Magic Apparel. That is our apparel company. You can go to ctmapparelco.com, check out the entire collection there. We have a brand new Epic Universe collection that we just released, has the Manor, Super Nintendo World, Isle of Berk, and we print everything in-house. We don't use third-party printers, so they're very high-quality prints, very comfortable shirts that will last you years to come. And just by being a watcher or subscriber on this channel, use the promo code YouTube, and you'll save 20% off of your order. Plus, if you order $49 or more, you get free shipping. So again, cteamapparelco.com and use the promo code YouTube to get 20% off of your order. That is the changes that they made at Epic Universe, and I'll have to wait and see how that affects the crowds and what people think about that in general. But either way, that is going to be it, though, for this video. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel, as we do lots of coverage here of Universal Studios, Epic Universe, Disney World, and pop culture. And let us know in the comments, what do you think about Dark Universe being added to the Epic Universe early park entry for hotel guests? And until next time, we will see you in the parks.